Concerns about childhood developmental delays and the association with fluoride is at an all-time high in America. Is removing fluoride from the community water supplies the right answer? Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, I'm Dr. David. I'm a board certified pediatrician in Tampa, Florida. I practice holistic functional medicine, and so I do work with a lot of families who take different lifestyle approaches, including their approaches to fluoride. Now, this is something I have been asked about a lot of recent because people have heard of the importance of fluoride for their teeth, but they're also hearing about the concerns about developmental delays in some of the studies that have been coming out. So I want to really get into this, but I also would like to invite you to give comments down in the comment section regarding whether you choose to fluoridate or not to expose your child to fluoride, what your cavity history is. Like, what are your thoughts of this overall? What are your thoughts about fluoridation in the water supplies? I'd be interested to know what you hear. So please let me know. Now, I'm also, before we're done, I'm going to share with you my thoughts and observations based upon all of this. So first of all, what is fluoride? It's a natural occurring mineral that's found in rock. The deeper into the earth, the more fluoride there is. And so when water is taken out from the earth, the deeper that the water is taken from, the more likely it will have fluoride naturally in it. The closer to the surface, the less likely it's going to have higher levels and have lower levels. So the geography of where a water supply is taken from will dictate how much is naturally in there. Now, also, community water supplies themselves, if there is too much fluoride in the water, they'll lower it. Of course, if there's well water, then the community's not on top of that. So that's something people really need to be on top of if they're drinking well water. Now, in addition to that, therefore, the fluoride can be in water, but it can also be found in soil, so what things are grown in. And it also can be released as part of industrial processes. So if a person lives close to an industrial plant, they could be getting it in their air as well. So what is fluoride used? What is the purpose of it? It hardens tooth enamel, as well as it's the structure of bones. It stabilizes bones. The biggest effect is before teeth are emerged in the first place, before they erupt. So that's where there is increased discussion about the benefits during nursing or during early feeding or during before the permanent teeth come out. So the question then becomes, for communities, how much fluoride should be in their water? And when I say should be, this is based upon World Health Organization, CDC, etc. says. The World Health Organization has declared that there should be between 0.5 and 1.5 milligrams per liter or parts per million, they're the same thing, of fluoride in the water. Now, in the United States, that was revised to no more than 0.7%. The upper tolerable limit of fluoride is dependent on a person's age. For 0 to 6 months of age, that upper tolerable limit is 0.7 parts per million, meaning that if a baby is consuming, maybe mixed in their formula, more than that amount of, more than a liter of water, they are surpassing their upper safe limit, the upper tolerable limit. If a baby is drinking 8-ounce bottles of formula 5 times a day, which is certainly possible, they'd be getting too much. So one of the things that is talked about is to not, and this is actually not my recommendation, this is like a more general recommendation, not using fluoridated water in baby formula for the first 6 months of age. It's one of the things that's discussed. Now, ready-to-feed formula may be better, but they don't list how much fluoride is in that, like in the nutritional comments. So you may need to contact the manufacturer to see if they're checking to see, but you can find out. Now, what is the concerns about fluoride? So first of all, and the thing that's more established is called fluoridosis. Now, fluorosis, excuse me. Now, this happens at a much higher amount than what we were just talking about, but a person can get white speckling or mottling of their permanent teeth. And it's a cosmetic issue more than it is a functional issue. But of course, people usually want to make sure that their kids have healthy looking teeth. So too much fluoride can cause that. But again, it usually have to be exposed to quite a bit of it. That can happen, though, in drinking well water if it's not being monitored. And that can happen if swallowing things like fluoridated toothpaste or fluoride rinses. So especially similar to, like we say, lock-up medicines, keep alcohol and things and other types of things away from children, that should be true from fluoridated products as well, especially since those toothpastes and those rinses, they can taste yummy. They may be something attractive to a child. So you got to be careful with that. Now, in terms of the actual research itself related to the developmental delays, now research has been going on for a while. I'm going to be quoting studies from just the last few years. Figure the more recent data, the better. Now, in 2022, there was a literature search done. Now, all of the studies that I'm going to be quoting, you can actually go to the links themselves. You'll see them in the show description, so you can look up what kind of study they did, what they were actually looking. I'm just giving very brief overviews. But in this study, they looked at from the prenatal period to 18 years of relative to fluoride exposure. There were 5,000 studies that they found, but only 46 of those studies met the inclusion criteria that they set to be included in their evaluation. And again, you can see what those are if you go to the paper. Of the studies that they deemed to be of excellent quality, only 1 out of the 5 of them found that there was a relationship between higher fluoride levels and developmental delays. Now, there were 34 studies that they consider more of fair to poor quality, but still met the criteria. And of those, 30 of the 34 did show a relationship between higher fluoride and more developmental delays. And so the researchers themselves, they concluded the following. The overall evidence from this review suggests that high fluoride exposure might be associated with negative cognitive outcomes in children. Now, in 2024, JAMA, which is the Journal of the American Medical Association, one of the more preeminent journals in the world, they looked at 229 maternal child pairs. They were from Los Angeles, so this was an American study, mostly of people of Hispanic benefit for the communities they were looking at. And they found that, look, compared to the average amount of fluoride found in the maternal urine, that if a woman had more than 0.68 above that average, there was a double chance, a doubling of the odds of having developmental delays in the children. And so basically, if the average was 0.76 milligrams per liter, if a woman had 1.44 or greater, then that was where they hit the double risk. So what the authors of this study concluded, these findings suggest that prenatal fluoride exposure may increase risk of neurobehavioral problems among children living in an optimally fluoridated area in the United States. These findings suggest that there may be a need to establish recommendations for limiting fluoride exposure during the prenatal period. Okay, so that's a concern, and it was JAMA. Now, also to kind of look at everything that was put out there in 2024, at the 36th annual conference of the International Society of Environmental Epidemiology Maternal Unit, they looked at the prenatal urine of fluoride levels and behavioral problems at 8 and 11 years of age. But in that study, they did not show an increase in developmental delays with higher levels. So some studies again show it, some studies don't. Now, in my practice, as I mentioned, which does have probably more non-fluoridated children than in other practices, I have to say I have not seen an increase in cavities in those families, in those children. But I also realize that there's maybe a very significant self-selection bias. Why? Because most of my patients breastfeed long-term, at least a year. And everybody's on vitamin D since the first week of life, and we're checking levels after that, after 1 year. So we are optimizing that, and both of those things are protective against dental cavities. In addition, most of my families are following low sugar and not consuming ultra-processed foods. So again, they're eating healthier. So I realize that that may be what's protecting these kids as well. And it's certainly possible that if a family had a different lifestyle and the kids were not eating as well, that I may not have those same observations. So I want to be clear about that selection bias that I may very well be informing my decision, if you will. But what's my take overall? So first of all, it needs to be clear first and foremost, fluoride is not the danger level that mercury or lead is. And not only that, compared to those minerals, fluoride does have a biological role. There's no biological role whatsoever for lead or mercury. Those are just toxic substances. Now, the studies themselves, they're nowhere conclusive. We really need to have larger studies, good quality studies, and maybe we will get that out of the new administration because we are hearing that this is something that they want to be looking at. But, but what going forward, okay, as far as should we be fluoridating the water? And that's kind of a mixed bag, okay? As I said, of course, if there is an excessive amount, if the drinking water, you can check how much fluoride is in your community drinking water because every community must report that annually. So you can check, you can contact them. It's on their website. You may even get an annual report in the mail. Now, one can, though, however, remove fluoride from their water. Reverse osmosis filters will take out between 90 to 97% of the fluoride, and other types of filters between 30 to 60% of the fluoride. So people can, if they wish, avoid significantly higher fluoride amounts compared to removing it, so that is an option. Now, also during pre-pregnancy and pregnancy, which again, if the concern is the exposure in utero, a woman can check their urine levels. As I mentioned, if a level is greater than 1.44, that's a double odds risk of having developmental delays. So especially if you check during pregnancy or during or prenatal or preconception, you can take such measures to lower it if the levels are high in the urine, just regardless of what the percentage is in the water. So one can do something about it. But I also recognize that one of the advantages of fluoride and being exposing a child to fluoride is that it does reduce the dental cavities by about 25%. Now, there are underserved communities, poor communities, that maybe people don't have access to dentists the way that others do to be able to deal with it in the first place, or to have good surveillance before cavities get worse. That's always a possibility. But it's also a possibility that, that if those people, it should be noted that also I realize if those people want to remove it from the fluoride, they may not be from their water, they may not be able to filter it out, they may not be able to afford it. But I also realize that if fluoride is removed from the water supply, and if there are people who feel like, well, I think my kid needs some fluoride, they may have to supplement. They may have to take, and that's only by prescription, unless they're buying like the nursery water that has it in there already. So there could be some issues both ways regarding more underserved populations. So again, you can take measures if you want to avoid it, but I am not at this point willing to say that we should be removing it from all fluorides, all systems. But I am saying there's concern out there, and there are measures that people can do to lower their intake of fluoride if that's a concern for them too. Anyways, I hope you learned something. Have a great day.